Okay, we're recording. You're on.
Okay, so well, our excerpt is at the end of scene 1. At this point, the king just asked his 3 daughters to tell him how much they love him. The first 2 daughters, Goneril and Regan, tell him how much they love him. Then Cordelia has basically nothing to say. So then he told her, he says to her that she's not going to get any part of the kingdom. So the first man who was possibly going to marry her, the Duke of Burgundy, tells her that he's no longer interested. And then the King of France tells her that he's interested, and that's where our excerpt starts. So the main themes in our excerpt are family relation and love, and we'll explore how Shakespeare speaks about hypocrisy and also honesty in the family.
Okay, so in the excerpt that was given to us, King of France is the first one to speak. And this is important because it happens right after Cordelia is banned from the kingdom, and the King of Burgundy just abandoned his quest to win Cordelia, and we're waiting to see if France will do the same thing. So he says on line 240, 241, first Cordelia, that art most rich being poor, most choice forsaken, and most love despised. So here he makes a beautiful antithesis to show how valuable Cordelia is to him. And he does more of these antitheses during his replica. Later on line, for example, later on line 244, 245, he says, "'Tis strange that from their cold neglect, my love should kindle to inflame respect." So here we can see the antithesis between cold and inflame, and this shows that the King of France is an honest character in the story, and he sees beyond money and power. He sees really Cordelia for the person she is. So we think that the King of France is has true heart. In line 246, he confronts Burgundy and France and tells them after they leave, they can never have Cordelia back. Then King Lear responds with a nonchalant tone, which shows that he doesn't really care about his daughter, and this reflects on the family theme in the play. He says, "Let her be thanked, for we have no such daughter, nor shall ever see that face of hers again," on line 253, 254. And the importance of this phrase is that this is the official moment when he bans Cordelia from the play, and he basically tells her he doesn't want to see her face anymore. And then he addressed Cordelia directly, because before he was talking like to the crowd. Now he's addressing Cordelia directly. He says on line 255, "Therefore, be gone without her grace or love or benison." So he's telling her, "I don't love you anymore. I don't respect you. Just leave." And this is I think is a sad part in the play, because those are the last words Lear will tell Cordelia. And what it tells us about the family love relation is bonds can be easily broken, and we can make a link to another family in the play, which is the family of Gloucester, Edgar, and Edmund, who was easily broken with a simple lie. And we concluded by saying that in this part of the novel, Lear is a hypocrite because is a hypocrite. And finally, France is telling Cordelia that they're leaving, so Cordelia is making her official goodbye to her sisters, and she gives her love and respect, and she tells her on line 259 to 60, "I know you what you are, and like a sister, and most loath to call your fault as they are named." by this, she's telling her she still love them and respect them no matter, even though she knows they're fake.
After Regan says, prescribe us our duty. So we see as soon as Regan speaks that she's not going to be on Cordelia's side. The fact that Cordelia didn't really prescribe her any duty, but just in itself it was just a normal, rational thing to say to take care of her father, means that Regan really is a cold character. And then the other sister, Goneril, tells her, let your study be to content your Lord, who hath received you at fortune alm. So as soon as, when Goneril speaks, we understand that she's probably going to team up with Regan against Cordelia. And we see that she's not really, probably not a good person, because she's telling her sister that she was only taken basically as an act of charity. And then Cordelia still takes time to tell them, well, may you prosper. So with this statement, we can see that Cordelia probably is a good person, an honest person, even though she's just been insulted and rejected, she still takes time to wish the best for her sisters. And then at this point, every actor leaves the scene except Goneril and Regan. So the impression that the two sisters are going to team up and plot against the other members of the family is enhanced. And then Regan says, "This is the infirmity of age, yet he had never ever but slenderly known himself." Again, here we can see that Regan is quite hypocritical, just like her sister, because she just declared her love to her father, and now she's basically going senile. And then Goneril says, "The best and soundest of his time had been but rash. Then must we look from his age to receive not alone the imperfection of long and crafty condition, but therewithal the unruly waywardness of that infirm and colic years bring to them." So Goneril just adds up to what her sister was saying. So the effect created is that the two sisters really understand and support each other very well. Though Regan answers that we shall further think on it, and Goneril answers that they must do something and I eat. So now we see a beginning of contrast between the two sisters. We can see that Goneril pushes her sister by saying that they must act right now. So the impression is that she's even more ruthless than Regan.
So in conclusion, we think that in the passage that was given to us, there's a clear contrast between hypocrisy and honesty, and that Lear and his sisters are hypocrite in this moment, and France and Cordelia are two honest characters.
Good. Go ahead, George, Rakan.
So our scene was our excerpt was in the scene 6, so it's the first scene of the Act 2. So just to put you a bit in context, at the end of Act 1, Lear leaves Goneril to see her sister Regan, and at this point he starts to realize that it was a mistake trusting them. And after, in the beginning of Act 2, before our excerpt, it all happens in Gloucester's castle. Cornwall and his wife are coming, and Edmund is speaking to Edgar, and he tells him that he needs to go away because people think that he is betraying persons to the people. And then after our excerpt, it starts. And our excerpt, it's it's only Gloucester and Edmund talking. And what Edmund is saying is that he just fought Edgar and told him to go away because Edgar wanted to kill Gloucester. And Gloucester, he's trusting Edmund, and he thinks, oh, he's my true son, and that's what our excerpt is about. So in this oral, we will mostly talk about how, in this excerpt, Edmund and Edgar are described as opposites. We will demonstrate this through 2 points. First of all, we will take a look at Edmund as how he's described as virtuous in this excerpt, and after we will look at Edgar who is seen as evil and treacherous. So I will start and speak about Edmund. So first of all, Edmund is described as a loyal son in this, as a loyal person in this excerpt. He's loyal to his father. For example, in a few lines, I will show you. In line 45, he says that he told Edgar with how manifold and strong a bond the child was bound to the father. By this he means he tells his father how he is loyal to him and how the link between them is very strong, and that Edgar wasn't following that link. And also we can see in line 48, he also said to his father, seeing how loathly opposite I stood. Loathly opposite, it means that he was disgusted by how Edgar was acting. So in this way, he tells his father that he is what Edgar was doing did really repugned him, disgusted him, and this shows how loyal he is to his father. But also, we need to point out that he's not just loyal to his father, but also to his brother, because in the line 44 and 46, he says, when I dissuaded him from his intent and found him pitched to it, with first speech I threatened to discover him. So he didn't just realize that his brother wanted to kill his father, so he would start just to stop his brother. He tried to convince him to stop because it shows that he had some affection to his brother and wanted him to, like, maybe still make things up, make things right. So now I will go to my second point. How is Edmund is not only loyal but also heroic, and because first of all, he says that he got wounded by his brother, so which is heroic, because he says that with his prepared sword he charges home, my unprovided body lends my arm. So here we see an opposition where his brother has his sword out and attacks him, while he has nothing to protect himself. And also, he fights well because even though Edgar attacked him first, he protected himself and made him fled. So it shows that he's not honorous and not Edgar. So finally, at the end of the excerpt, Gloucester, he says that he will make him his natural son, which, so now let's go to
Okay, so basically, as Rakan portrayed Edmund as loyal, I explained that he was loyal and heroic. I will show that Edgar was, on the contrary, portrayed as someone who's evil and treacherous. And start off with the treacherous point. It's basically the opposite of being loyal. So this shows the opposition between Edgar and Edmund. And there's multiple ways that Edgar is shown as treacherous. One of the first is that he plans the death of his father. We see at the first line, persuade me to murder of your lordship. That's basically Edmund saying to his father what Edgar wanted to do to Gloucester. But more importantly, he's also treacherous not only to his father, but to his brother. We see this that in lines 67 to 69, where he says, if I would stand against thee, could the reposure of any trust, virtue, or worth in thee make thy words fade? So basically what he's saying is that even if he ever got caught trying to kill his father, he just put the blame on Edmund. And he wouldn't hesitate to put the blame on him. And we can even see in the words he used that he senses a certain superiority over Edmund, because he calls him, line 67, unpossessing bastard, which is not particularly a nice word to say to his brother. And also, one other way that he doesn't only betray his father and brother, but he also betrays a bit the convention at the time, when he attacks his brother first without giving notice of the attack. So, like Rakan said, basically that Edmund was unprepared, he hadn't drawn his sword yet. So it's kind of breaking the convention and betraying the convention at the time and the Chevaleresque convention. Now, for the point of him being evil, I'll separate this in two parts. First, his acts are deemed evil and almost not dignified. And also, he himself is described as someone who is evil. So firstly, if we go to page 145, line 43, but that I told them the revenge of gods against parasites did all their thunders bend. What this basically means is that the gods themselves are putting judgment upon Edgar's supposed actions. They're saying that if he were to kill his father, they'd punish him greatly, most probably by death. Thunders bend is a strong word for them. Also, there's also at the page after that, the first line is, to his unnatural purpose with foul motion. When we hear unnatural, it's going against nature, which means it's another way of saying basically that his acts are wrong, and more than just wrong, they're against nature. They're somewhat evil in the sense we could describe it as that. And what these two excerpts of the experts show is that punishments will be given to Edgar if he does do his acts, which is another way of saying that he did something wrong because, now describe him as a horrible human being. Basically, there was 961 catered to the stove.
That's 8 minutes. So we're moving on. Go.
So this scene, we're going to analyze comes after Regan and Goneril have banned their father from their castles and from entering them. So now Lear is left alone with the fool out in the storm, the raging storm actually. So he's on the heath, and in the previous scene, Kent was looking for them. This is the 9th scene of the play, so it's still at the beginning. However, it's one of the most important scenes, and we will see the reason for that as we analyze it. So the approach we choose, we looked at how Lear's battle against the storm reflects his psychological turmoil, and in order to do that, we looked at two different angles. So first, we looked at how his daughter's actions are the main cause of his psychological breakdown. So that's the cause, and then we looked at, as a result of these psychological issues, how Lear undergoes a transformation. So this is a consequence. So I'll start by looking at Lear's conflictual relationship with his daughters. First of all, the storm represents the conflict Lear has with his daughters. As he says, "Rumble thy bellyful" at line 14, Lear gives the storm a belly, which is a human body part. He then speaks to the sky by saying verbs such as blow, rage, and spit. These are human actions. So as you can see, these are human characteristics. So Shakespeare is drawing a resemblance between the storm, so that represents nature, and humans through Lear's daughters. So that's a personification. He then says, "Nor rain, wind, thunder, fire are my daughters" at line 15. Here we see Lear questioning himself. So what he's seeing is that nature is mistreating him like his daughters are. However, it shouldn't be that way. With his daughters, he has a conflict going on because he feels like his daughters owe him something because of everything he's done for them. So that's at the center of the whole the conflict. That's the center of the conflict. However, he feels like he doesn't have that kind of relationship with nature, so why is nature treating him that badly? So we see here a sense of duty from Lear's daughters to him, and a sense of resentment from Lear towards his daughters. Moreover, Lear distances himself from his daughters. When he says "with two pernicious daughters" at line 22, we notice the absence of the word "my" before pernicious daughters. This shows his frustration at them, and it also shows that he disowns them as there is no sign of possession. And that marks a difference in tone from 7 lines before at line 15 when he had said "my daughters." So this shows that there's an evolution going on in Lear's mind, and that he's beginning to go that he's getting even more frustrated at them as the scene goes by. Finally, the fool wants Lear to dodge his pride and to simply take shelter at one of his daughter's castles. So when he says "court holy water in a dry house is better than this rainwater out a door" at lines 10 and 11, the fool suggests that Lear should simply forgive them and take shelter. The role of the fool is generally to act as a rational character and to show pointing out the king's faults, and this is what he's doing. He simply wants the king's safety, and this is why he suggests that. And to the audience, this shows that Lear is further going down in madness as he refuses to obey or to follow the fool's advice, so it shows how irrational he is.
As a result of Lear's psychological instability, we see that he undergoes a transformation in the way he perceives himself. And we really see this in his interaction with natural elements. Lear is usually surrounded by many people, people who are there to assist him. We see this in previous scenes where he requested that 100 servants assist him when he is to be housed in one of his daughter's castles. However, in this scene, he is tackling this storm alone, despite the fool's presence. He is the one who is addressing nature and its elements. We also see that he is physically lost in this storm. At lines 1 and 2, he says, "Blow, wind, and crack your cheeks. Rage, blow." So there is an accumulation that is created by an enumeration of short words, which provide a certain rhythm to his monologue. And this further emphasizes the fact that the storm has an overwhelmingly violent nature, and that Lear is absorbed by the storm. However, he still defies nature. We see this by the fact that he uses the imperative tense in the aforementioned lines, and the imperative verbs create a sense of authority, and we see that King Lear is still willing to have an authority over the people around him, but now he is alone with the fool, and he is trying to express his authority towards nature, which effectively fails. There's a certain ironic aspect to the fact that he addresses nature directly, but because, of course, it is unaffected. Furthermore, Lear describes himself negatively in this scene. We see this by the fact that he refers to himself at line 20 as a poor, infirm, weak, and despised old man. This enumeration shows that he has a new perception of himself. He is not self-righteous and glorious like he used to be portrayed in previous scenes, but now that he has lost his political status, he is vulnerable, weak, and his vulnerability could be linked to his own political status, as he is now effectively overthrown by his daughters, who are now ruling his kingdom. We also see a certain glimpse in humanity in Lear through his vulnerability, as he has descended from his high status. The audience further has a feeling of empathy following his description of himself. We see that Shakespeare adds certain rhetorical elements. For example, like 24, he says, "A head so old and white as this," to refer to King Lear, and that is his own speech. So we see that Shakespeare wants to create a certain feeling of empathy in the audience towards Lear, and we see that as he descends further into madness, this empathy becomes more and more justified. So in conclusion, Lear's battle against elements is reflective of his own psychological turmoil. We see this through the fact that the conflict at the root of his issues is his fight with his daughters, and that he is willing to distance himself from them. He also expresses pain through the fact that there's a change in the way he sees himself, and he is portrayed negatively and as being vulnerable. And the call for empathy further emphasizes this idea of like psychological vulnerability. This scene is a turning point in this play, as Lear's progressive fall into madness continues in the following scenes. And as we see that he distances himself from Goneril and Regan, and that he goes towards the city of Dover to meet France and Cordelia, he further descends into madness.
Okay, good. Go ahead, guys.
We have scene 19. So Shakespeare develops what? Shakespeare.
You want to start over?
Yeah.
Start over.
Starting,
Ready?
Yeah.
Let's synchronize the, okay.
Shakespeare is a master of dialogue. It is his preferred method to develop his characters and the plot of a story. And this play, King Lear, there is no exception. He advances the plot and evolves the character through the dialogue. The perfect example of this is at scene 19. In this scene, Oswald, who is Goneril's servant, visits Regan. He informs her that the troops are mobilizing and that they are preparing for battle. He has with him a letter. For Edmund, which sparks Regan's curiosity. When she asks to see the letter, Oswald refuses to show it, and we see that this starts a dispute between the two. We see that there is a tension between Oswald and Regan. Indeed, in this scene, it's established that there is a deterioration of the relationship between Goneril and Regan through the confrontation between Oswald, who is Goneril's servant, through the letter, which acts as a plot device, and through the mood and shifting tone of the play. This inscribes itself perfectly into one of the main themes of the play, which is betrayal. First and foremost, Oswald displays an unwavering loyalty to Goneril. He is, as Regan puts it, of Goneril's bosom. Therefore, every single one of his acts is either aimed at pleasing his mistress or is an act that his own mistress would do. We can see this early on in the play when Oswald refuses to treat the king in a custom which is required for a servant to treat the king, because Goneril has a dispute with the king. Therefore, we can assume that the way Oswald interacts with Regan in the scene is the way Goneril herself would act with Regan. He is, in other words, a proxy for her. There is a tension between the two of them, and there is also a loss of unity. Earlier in the play, Regan and Goneril acted together. When Lear felt mistreated by Goneril and went to Regan's castle, she immediately started mistreating him in the same way that Goneril mistreated her father. Now that they are no longer together, we see that there are disputes between the two of them. This is especially true when Regan says that they should not have let Gloucester live, which was her original intention. But then she followed her sister, and now she has regrets.
Secondly, the letter acts as a plot device to further the plot of the play. In this case, it causes the chain of events that will lead to the end of the play and will establish the causes of the rivalry. It is central to the scene, yet its form is not important. What matters is its content. Indeed, when Regan learns that it was spent by Goneril for Edmund, she becomes almost paranoid, telling Oswald that that she knows that Goneril does not love her husband, and that she saw Goneril give strange ayats and most speaking looks. Here Regan seems very worried about Goneril having an opportunity to take Edmund away from her. This sets Edmund as the focal point of the rivalry, and for the first time between the sisters, there seems to be a competition to gain his favor, which is why Regan gives her own token to Oswald so he can give it back to Edmund. This letter is also used by Shakespeare to revisit the theme of betrayal that is present through the play. Indeed, by asking Oswald to unseal the letter, Regan is directly telling him to betray his mistress, Goneril. This sets a precedent between the two sisters and could be used as a foreshadowing of Goneril's ultimate betrayal of Regan. And finally, there is the tone is crucial to illustrating the degrading relationship between the sisters. Indeed, in the scene, there's a change in tone. At first, there is a semblance of camaraderie between Oswald and Regan. They exchange information concerning the mobilization of their troops, and which makes their alliance seems relatively strong in the eyes of the audience. Moreover, there's an exchange of false platitudes, especially when Regan tells him to stay for the night, because the ways are dangerous. However, Shakespeare's here uses short sentences, which conveys it more like an order. Indeed, Regan says, our troop sets forth tomorrow, end of the sentence, stay with us, end of the sentence, the ways are dangerous. This makes Regan look like she has unmentioned intentions towards Oswald and she wants to do with. However, after Oswald's categorical refusal to give her the letter, she goes ballistic on him and becomes openly hostile. This is shown by her interrupting Oswald as he was telling her that he'd rather do something else, but she didn't let him finish his sentence. And she told him that she knew her lady didn't love her husband directly, and that and she further lays claim to Edmund by telling Oswald that she tells Oswald that her lord is dead, that Edmund and her have thought, and that it's more convenient for her to have Edmund's end than Goneril's. This shows Regan using her widowhood to justify her claim to Edmund and furthers the rivalry between them. And once again, it shows Edmund as the focal point of the rivalry between the two sisters. And the change in tone could further symbolize their degrading relationship.
So to conclude, this scene serves as an indication of the growing rift between the two sisters, a rift which is indicated through the tension between her Goneril's servant Oswald, through the letter which serves as a plot device, and through the shifting tone of the scene. This scene is crucial to the play since it sets forth the cascade of events that will conclude the play. One can think of Regan's assassination at the end. Moreover, we seem to have a return to the beginning of the play when there is the competition between the sisters to who will have the kingdom, except that now Edmund serves as the prize and he cannot be shared, unlike the kingdom. Therefore, the competition for him is a lot more savage.
End of the story.
Good.
Our extract is situated right after Edgar, who's Albany's champion, triumphs over Edmund in trial by combat. Edmund was accused of capital treason. It's also after Regan and Goneril are dead and their bodies are brought in, and Kent is looking for Lyra. So this scene is the unraveling of the plot. We're going to look at it through the perspective of Edmund, Cordelia, Kent, and Lear, who are the main characters still alive. The theme of death, family, and loyalty are very present. So the unraveling of the plot starts with Edmund's redemption. Edmund is the link between the two major plots. He unites the Gloucester's clan and Lear's family, and he played both sides equally. Edmund, he recognizes that he did wrong and takes responsibility for his action. He says, some good I mean to do despite of my own nature. So he recognizes that his nature is bad. And to save his soul, he tries to save Cordelia and Lear. So he tasks the second captain to go give his sword to the first captain. He says, the captain, give it to the captain. Here the repetition really stresses the urgency of the moment. So, Edmund also links himself with the other protagonist of the story, which is a song of confessions. He abandons his former self, and it evokes the image of someone dying in his deathbed, telling his family what he did wrong. He tells Albany that he was an accomplice with his wife to kill Cordelia and fake her suicides, so we can imagine the tone of a dying man. Also, since he's dying, his physical death is the manifestation of his demise, and this is what the asides indicate. His body is taken out. So basically, we know that he fell. In the end, he got busted, and it's the end for him.
For Edmund's redemption sort of leads the unraveling of Lear and Cordelia's story as a ripple effect. Cordelia and Lear, their story ends in a very tragic Shakespearean way. So we see at the end that Lear's when Lear is with Cordelia, he tries to save her. He's desperate to save her. At line 2, at verse 261, and after, this feather stirs, she lives. If it be so, it is a chance which does redeem all sorrows that I have ever felt. It's his failed attempt at trying to keep her alive. We can also make a link at the beginning of the play when Cordelia tried to save him continuously, and she obviously did, but he couldn't as her father saved him. With the death of Cordelia, it's the ultimate blow to, it's the last hope, the death of the last hope of good in Lear's family. And this provokes an excessive sadness from Lear at verse 253, when he says, Howl, oh you are men of stones. The repetition in this verse really accentuates Lear's as a grieving father. And he is the picture of a broken father, and the death of Cordelia is the ultimate blow to his sanity. He's been he's been seeping into a downfall throughout the whole play. And as his favorite daughter dies, his hope died as well. He indeed fell into insanity so deep that he kind of fell into a state of childhood. He was sort of an infant, depending on everyone that was loyal to him. So from the fool, Kent, Gloucester, and most importantly, Cordelia. She was the daughter that was loyal to him. And she sort of took on for Lear a mother figure in the end, because she saved him, and she tried to save him. And we can see this inversion of the roles at verse 255 to 257, when he says, she's gone forever. I know when one is dead and when one lives. She's dead as earth. Lend me a looking glass. So she's dead as earth, lend me a looking glass. It's sort of an opposition here, because he affirms that she's dead, but then he's trying to see if she's alive, trying to keep her alive. So it's as if a child is holding on to the life of a parent, and as if a father is holding on to the life of his daughter. And the tragic death of Cordelia, we can also see there is a religious aspect to it, because she's been very loyal and pure throughout the whole novel. And this purity, you can see it when Lear says at line 254 and 55, had I your tongues and eyes, I would use them so that heaven's vault should crack. Trying to show that she really deserves, even if she's dead, she deserves to go up and have the fate that she deserves. So this is very strong imagery.
So Ken does not have a single flaw in his work, but in the end, his resolve and confidence, they're shaken, because even after all he did, he wasn't able to save Cordelia and Lyra. We see this when he says, alack, why thus? Here the term alack plus the questioning are a clear sign of dismay. And he also does a reference to the day of judgment. He says, is this the promised end? So it clearly represents the end of his world, that all he lived for is dead. It could also suggest that Ken predicted the fall from the beginning when Lear set the chains of events. And now it's happening. So it was bound to happen, and now Also, his plot ends when he finally reveals himself to Lear, and he seems to want recognition for his acts. What's funny is that he says the same, your servant Kent, where is your servant Caius? But he knows very well who Caius is. Caius is himself, it's his name when he's disguised. So it's like a taunt question that he already knows the answer to.
A what question?
A taunt question.
Okay.
He wants Lear to tell him maybe how Caius was helpful to him, to get recognition for what he did. It's also like a teacher asking to a kid to make sure he knows the answer, and it could fit because Lear's age makes him a kid, like Kemi said. So he wants to make sure Lear's know who helped him. And also what's interesting is that Caius is very similar to Gaius, who was someone in the Bible. He was a servant to Paul, and they were both traveling companions, just like Lear and Kent were. And he's one of the only people that Paul baptized, which is a great sign of respect. So maybe Kent, he wants this respect from his master, some recognition for what he did in the end.
So in conclusion, the unraveling of the stories begins with Edmund's redemption, Cordelia's tragic death, Lear's very tragic ending as Cordelia dies, and Kent desire to be recognized by Lear as his loyal servant. And all of these 4 endings, these little loose ends, they all come together. All the individual stories, they all come together. All the characters connect. And they are all faced with what happened, the consequences of their action. So their personal closure all comes together to unfold and close the loose ends of the play and lead to the ending.
Open discussion.
Do we ask questions?
You discuss whichever way you want.
Okay, well, I have a question regarding the second team that discussed, like their excerpt.
Go.
So you discussed how like the duality that exists between Edgar and Edmund, and I have actually a question about Gloucester's gullibility and his role in the play, because he's kind of he kind of creates a balance between the 2 characters. He's a middleman, and in this scene we see that he's clearly convinced that Edmund is telling the truth, as he really adopts like a critical tone towards Edgar right away. So how do you feel like his role has changed, like, given this in the beginning? What I mean by that is, like, in the beginning, when he arrives, his own conception of his 2 sons is that Edgar is the good one, implicitly. But in a few lines, his perception completely changes. What does that say about him?
I don't totally agree that at the beginning he thinks that Edgar is the good one, because even in the beginning he talks to Edmund and he shows them to like Kent and other noble people in the court, and he tells them, this is my son Edmund, and I act with him like he is my true son. So I don't really think that at the beginning he sees like Edgar is the good one, Edmund is the bad one, but just this changes that really, like, they were at the same level and now there is someone who's good.
Also, just to make a link with Matteo at the beginning, you said that also Lear is someone who's gullible, and I found it interesting that it's kind of like a thing that comes often in the play, that people are gullible and that they have almost some sort of blind trust, because he barely has any evidence that Edgar did do it. He has a forged letter, which is more or less evidence, and it's kind of interesting to see how it reoccurs in the play.
And if you consider like the duality that you described, would you be able to position him where he's really the middleman between honesty, loyalty, and evil?
I think he's more of a virtuous. I don't see him as someone. Well, I see him in the middle actually, because of the way he treated Edmund. Also, let's say at the beginning of the play where he talked about his conception in a kind of a crudely way. He's more in the middle. He is virtuous at points. He sticks by with Lear. He does want to believe one of his sons. Doesn't not believe it, but yeah, the point that he also has some bad in him the way he did treat Edmund before him.
I don't think Edmund and Edward are on the same level, because Gloucester he tells people that Edmund is a bastard, which is something a bit degrading. And when also he talks about his mother, he talks about the sexual acts, which I don't think they're really on the same level. I have to disagree.
Or could that be something that maybe in context would have been perceived better?
But I think that the fact that Edmund's upbringing automatically has influences on how he behaves like throughout his life and with all of his interactions with everyone. So comparing them is quite hard, because they're not at the same level, like right from the start. So
And if they were at the same level, there wouldn't be the jealousy with Edmund, and probably the story wouldn't have happened if they were at the same level.
But they're opposites. They're not at the same level, because one is more portrayed as a virtuous one, and the other is like an evil brother. So they're just I think you can compare them in the sense that they're so opposite that they counterbalance each other.
And I think we can also see a difference in upbringing at line 143 maybe, something like that. Edmund basically tells Gloucester that Edgar tried to persuade him to murder your lordship. Here, Edmund addresses Gloucester not as his father, but as his lord, and this shows that he has an inferior status, and he uses his blood against Edgar to remain into it. At the end of this scene, it's shown that. La sister addresses them as his natural son.
Towards the end of like the play, we see that there's a scene where they battle each other, and despite kind of the way I see it is that despite the fact that we can't really compare them, they compare themselves among them. And Edmund's willingness to overthrow his brother and to gain his father's trust kind of shows that they cannot be compared on similar elements, but that they still do it, and that leads to the fight.
Is he really trying to gain his father's trust, or is he trying to get him out of the way? Because on scene 19,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
on scene 19,
So it's more individualistic.
Regan says that Edmund has been chasing Foster to put him out of his misery. So basically, he wouldn't do that if he wasn't looking just to take his place.
Well, isn't he more, I would say that he's not more trying to obtain his father's acceptance and society's acceptance. He's been marginalized his whole life, so he's trying to like go up the ladder, trying to obtain power and get recognized for the person that he is.
And
He thinks he is.
I think he's also trying to get a share of his father's land because of the fact that he's a bastard. He has no right to all of his father's possessions. So, and his brother has all of that by doing absolutely nothing more than him. So he feels that's just an unfair situation, which he's just trying to, at the same time, get society's recognition, as he's always been marginalized. But he also wants a share of his father's possessions.
Well, I think he wants all of his father's
All of his father's possessions.
Possessions
but
and?
ideal world.
Title.
And also on scene 24, last scene, I don't remember exactly where it was, but it's interesting that as he is dying, Edmund just says, "Yet Edmund was loved," and you see that it was accepted in some way because he had Regan and Goneril fighting to gain his favor.
And the fact that he says, despite of my own nature, kind of further supports this point because he feels like he's destined to that, like a series of events.
Yeah, but he's accepted only at the end after he acquired the title and lost it. So he only became someone as he went further and acquired titles, as he acquired money, and as he backstabbed his family.
It's the first time he feels loved, so of course maybe that changes how he behaves because it's something he's experiencing for the first time, like having people wanting to be with him and not just insulting him or being mean to him because he is a bastard child.
But then again, he's playing with that love. You see,
Yeah.
when he is having an affair with Goneril.
Yeah.
That kind of supports the idea that he doesn't know how to react.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I think he knows. It's more that he has a plan and he's doing his plan.
Does he though? Because
On the asides, he says he's playing both sides equally.
Yeah, but maybe that's because he's not used to love. Like, that's what we mean that since he's not used to being loved and he doesn't value other people's respect as much as he would have if he had been brought up in an environment where he felt respect and love for other people. Yeah.
But he has a plan and he wants.
Yeah, that's why he puts love aside.
He's kind of a parasite. I mean,
Yeah.
he tries to leech up everything he can. He has a mentality that he must acquire everything he can to steal from everybody, even those who love him. And he doesn't mind walking on nobody's corpse to achieve his goals.
That really supports the idea of a really radical duality where he represents evil.
I'm just gonna make a little intervention. What do you guys think about what they're saying, but link it back to the roles of Regan, Goneril, and how Cordelia is on the other side of that coin? Are there similarities, are there differences?
Yeah, well, I speak a bit about like how the family theme is goes in like both families in the story. So the Lear family and the Gloucester family. So I think there's also this opposition you can see between like the two sisters and Cordelia on the other side. You know how there's like there's a rivalry, and like this rivalry later it's between Goneril and Regan. So it's like between the three sisters.
I think just like Edmund, Goneril and Regan don't care if they have to step on someone else's foot to get what they want. So that makes them kind of evil. Well, not evil, but makes them not people you really think about as good people.
Okay, we got a cut there. that was good.